Imagine spending years believing that the key to strong, youthful muscles lies in tubs of protein powder or expensive shakes. Then, a quiet discovery emerges from a laboratory, one that turns this idea completely upside down. Researchers studying muscle metabolism in older adults found that a simple $1 food, often overlooked and sitting in plain sight, can activate the body's muscle building machinery more effectively than the very supplements marketed to replace it. Here is what is truly fascinating. After the age of 70, the way our body processes protein changes dramatically. The machinery that once easily converted protein into muscle fibers starts to lose its responsiveness, a phenomenon known as anabolic resistance. It is one of the hidden reasons why many older adults struggle to maintain muscle mass, even when they are eating plenty of protein. The body, quite literally, stops listening to the signal that says, build muscle. But this is where the story gets interesting. Scientists discovered that a certain natural compound found in this humble, everyday food can reawaken that signal, reigniting muscle synthesis even in aging cells. It works not by flooding the body with more protein, but by improving how the body uses the protein already available. This small shift changes everything about how we think of nutrition after 70. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a construction site where all the building materials are stacked and ready, the wood, the steel, the bricks, but the workers have stopped showing up. Adding more materials will not help. What you really need is to call the workers back to the site. That is exactly what this food does inside your body. It reactivates the workers, your muscle-building enzymes, so they can once again use protein efficiently to repair and rebuild tissue. What recent research reveals is that this natural trigger also improves insulin sensitivity, enhances mitochondrial function, and lowers the inflammation that silently erodes muscle integrity with age. That means it is not just about muscle size, it is about restoring energy, balance, and vitality at the cellular level. So today, we will uncover how this $1 food works on a molecular level, how it interfaces with hormones and metabolism, and why modern science now considers it a key ally in maintaining strength and longevity beyond 70. If that sounds intriguing, stay with me, because what you are about to learn may completely change how you think about aging and muscle health. For most people over 70, the struggle to maintain muscle is not about a lack of effort or motivation. It is about biology, a quiet shift that takes place inside the muscle cells themselves. Scientists call it anabolic resistance, and it is one of the most misunderstood aspects of aging. Here is what is really happening inside your body. When you are young, the muscles respond almost immediately to signals from amino acids, the building blocks of protein. The moment protein enters the bloodstream, a molecular messenger called mTOR lights up inside your muscle cells, telling them to start building new fibers. It is a smooth, efficient process, but as we age, this signal weakens. The mTOR pathway becomes sluggish, almost as if it has forgotten how to respond. The result is that even when you eat protein, your muscles do not fully register the message. It is as if you are speaking the right language, but the body's translators are asleep. Over time, this blunted communication leads to thinner muscle fibers, slower repair after activity, and a noticeable decline in strength. This is not merely cosmetic, it affects balance, metabolism, and even brain function. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your muscles as an orchestra that once played in perfect rhythm. The protein you eat is the music sheet, but with age, the conductor begins to lose coordination. The notes are the same, but the music no longer resonates. The challenge is not the music itself, it is the conductor's ability to guide it. Now, here is where this story becomes fascinating. Scientists discovered that this $1 food contains a bioactive molecule capable of restoring sensitivity to that muscle-building signal. It acts almost like a wake-up call to your mTOR pathway, reminding it how to interpret the language of amino acids. Instead of forcing more protein into the system, it makes the system listen again. That single shift transforms how efficiently your muscles use nutrients. What recent research reveals is that when this natural trigger is consumed regularly, older muscle tissue begins to behave more like younger muscle, not because the amount of protein increases, but because the efficiency of protein utilization improves. This finding has changed how researchers think about muscle preservation in aging. The focus is no longer just on how much protein we consume, but on how effectively our bodies respond to it. If this is making sense so far, consider subscribing. I share this kind of science every day to help you understand what is truly happening inside your body and how nature has already built remarkable systems for repair and renewal. When scientists began comparing different protein sources in older adults, they expected one clear pattern, that more protein should always mean more muscle. But the data told a different story. Individuals who consumed moderate amounts of protein, combined with specific natural compounds from whole foods, often built more lean tissue than those relying on protein powders alone. The reason lies deep in the molecular machinery that governs how muscle cells read the body's nutritional environment. Here is what is really happening inside your body. Every time you eat, your muscles evaluate the incoming nutrients and decide whether to enter a state of growth or preservation. Think of this as a biological traffic signal. When the light is green, muscles synthesize new proteins and strengthen their fibers. When it turns red, the system shifts into conservation mode, slowing repair and recycling tissue instead. In older adults, that signal tends to stay red longer than it should. Chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and impaired insulin signaling interfere with the process that tells muscle tissue it is safe to grow. As a result, even high-quality protein struggles to cross that metabolic barrier. But certain foods contain compounds that can flip that signal back to green. This $1 food does precisely that. It activates signaling molecules like AMPK and SIRT1, which recalibrate the muscle's internal sensors and restore proper metabolic communication. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a factory that once operated smoothly, with sensors and machines working in harmony. Over time, the sensors become dusty, the wiring corroded, and the control system less responsive. You can keep sending in more raw materials, but production will not increase until the sensors are cleaned and the circuits restored. That is exactly what this food does at the cellular level. It clears the interference that blocks the growth signal and restores the connection between nutrient intake and muscle repair. What recent research reveals is that these compounds not only enhance muscle protein synthesis, but also improve glucose uptake, which means the energy from food is directed toward rebuilding tissue instead of being stored as fat. This dual action strengthens the metabolic flexibility that often fades with age. Scientists now believe that the key to healthy aging is not to overload the system with more nutrients, but to optimize the conversation between food and the body's repair mechanisms. When that dialogue is restored, even small amounts of natural protein become powerful tools for regeneration. The food at the center of this discovery is the egg, one of the simplest, most affordable, and biologically complete foods on Earth. For decades, eggs were misunderstood, dismissed as a source of cholesterol or dietary concern. Yet, what modern science has uncovered is that this very food may be one of nature's most efficient muscle-building catalysts, particularly in people over 70. Here is what is really happening inside your body when you eat an egg. Unlike protein powders, which deliver isolated amino acids stripped from their natural cofactors, the egg offers a complete biological system. The yolk is not merely a container for fat, it holds phospholipids, choline, and key vitamins that act as molecular activators. These compounds tell your muscle cells how to interpret the protein signal more effectively. It is not just the protein content that matters, it is the context in which that protein arrives. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine sending a message written in perfect handwriting, but without an envelope or address, it never reaches its destination. That is what happens when you consume protein without its natural cofactors. The amino acids are there, but the body cannot deliver them properly. The nutrients in the egg yolk serve as that envelope and address, ensuring the protein signal reaches the right receptors inside the muscle cell. What recent research reveals is that the leucine in eggs acts as a powerful trigger for the mTOR pathway, directly stimulating muscle protein synthesis. But the effect multiplies when paired with the micronutrients in the yolk, which reduce inflammation and improve insulin signaling, two factors that often suppress muscle growth in older adults. This synergy explains why the muscle building response from whole eggs is significantly greater than from egg whites or protein powders alone. Another fascinating detail is that the lipid matrix in the yolk slows the absorption of amino acids just enough to create a sustained release, allowing muscles to rebuild over several hours rather than just one short spike. That steady rhythm is far closer to how youthful metabolism once functioned. So while marketing often glorifies powders, shakes, or supplements, the truth is that one humble egg, costing about $1 for several servings, can outperform them in efficiency and biological impact. The key is not the quantity of protein, but the intelligence of how nature packaged it. If this deeper look into how natural foods outperform synthetic solutions is resonating with you, subscribe and stay with me. The next section will reveal what happens when your insulin, cortisol, and mitochondria begin working in harmony, and how this small food influences all three to restore your body's natural rhythm of repair. The second food that quietly rivals protein powders and even works synergistically with eggs is the lentil, a food so common, so modest in price, that it rarely earns the spotlight it deserves. Yet in laboratory and clinical studies, lentils have demonstrated a remarkable ability to restore the body's muscle-building response, especially in adults past 70. Here is what is really happening inside your body when you consume lentils. Most people see them merely as a plant source of protein, but the real power of lentils lies in their amino acid to fiber ratio. Inside your gut, lentils release a steady stream of amino acids while also feeding beneficial bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate. These compounds travel to the bloodstream and directly signal muscle and liver cells to become more insulin sensitive and less inflamed. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your metabolism as a dimly lit room filled with switches. Each one controls a vital function like energy use, repair, and regeneration. Over time, as insulin resistance and inflammation rise, many of those switches turn off. Lentils act like a hand turning the lights back on. Not by force, but by restoring the electricity that allows the switches to function. That electricity is your cell's communication network, powered by healthy mitochondria and balanced hormones. What recent research reveals is that lentils contain specific bioactive peptides that activate AMPK, the same master regulator that tells your body to burn fat for energy rather than store it. This activation improves the efficiency of muscle mitochondria, which in turn amplifies endurance and cellular strength. In older adults, that translates into better energy, stronger muscles, and improved metabolic flexibility, the ability to shift seamlessly between using glucose and fat as fuel. The fiber within lentils also plays a crucial, often overlooked role. By slowing the release of glucose into the bloodstream, it prevents the sharp insulin spikes that suppress growth hormone and blunt the muscle repair response. The result is a more stable internal environment, one in which muscle tissue can heal, rebuild, and stay metabolically active. Scientists studying this interaction found that combining lentil-derived amino acids with natural dietary fats like those in eggs creates a balanced nutrient signal that the body interprets as an invitation to rebuild. This synergy mirrors how traditional diets sustained strength and vitality long before supplements existed. In essence, lentils are not just a plant protein, they are a metabolic reprogrammer. They teach your cells to listen again, to respond to nutrients with clarity rather than confusion. By now, it becomes clear that muscle loss in older adults is not simply about protein consumption, it is about communication. The body has all the tools it needs for repair, but the signals between hormones, mitochondria, and metabolic enzymes often grow distorted with age. And this is where the quiet genius of nature shows itself once again. When researchers studied how certain foods reawaken the body's natural repair rhythm, they noticed something remarkable. Both eggs and lentils influence a deeper regulatory system, one that involves insulin, cortisol, and mitochondrial energy flow. Together, these forces dictate whether the body remains in a state of renewal or decline. Here is what is really happening inside your body. Insulin, often thought of only in the context of blood sugar, is also a key messenger for growth and repair. When insulin signaling is balanced, Muscles absorb amino acids and rebuild efficiently, but when it is constantly elevated due to chronic stress or unstable meals, cortisol rises in response, shifting energy away from muscle synthesis and toward fat storage. This hormonal tug of war is one of the major reasons why even well-fed older adults continue to lose strength. Now imagine what happens when you introduce the nutrient patterns found in eggs and lentils. They gently lower the demand for insulin by stabilizing blood glucose, and they modulate cortisol by providing a steady, calm energy release rather than sharp spikes. This allows the body's internal environment to quiet down, like a crowded room where the noise finally fades and the real conversation can begin again. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your metabolism as an orchestra of hormones. Insulin is the rhythm section, cortisol is the percussion, and the mitochondria are the strings. When one instrument overpowers the rest, the music turns chaotic. But when balance is restored, the performance becomes harmonious again. Smooth, efficient, and deeply alive. That harmony is what these natural foods help recreate inside your body. What recent research reveals is that as mitochondrial function improves, muscle tissue begins producing its own growth factors, natural molecules that communicate directly with the brain and liver to promote regeneration. This internal feedback loop is what scientists now call the muscle-liver axis. It means that when your muscles thrive, your entire metabolism responds. Energy rises, inflammation drops, and longevity pathways activate. If this understanding of how the body self-regulates through food and hormones resonates with you, subscribe and stay engaged. Because when we understand these systems, we stop chasing quick fixes and start aligning with the biology that was always working to keep us strong. When you step back and look at the entire system, a profound truth emerges. Muscle health is not an isolated issue. It is a reflection of how well your entire metabolism is synchronized. The foods that build muscle after 70 do far more than add strength. They reshape how your body allocates energy, repairs tissue, and resists disease. Here is what is really happening inside your body. Every muscle fiber is an engine powered by mitochondria, tiny energy factories that convert nutrients into usable fuel. In youth, these mitochondria operate like well-tuned machines. But as decades pass, oxidative stress, nutrient deficiencies, and hormonal imbalances begin to clog their systems. They burn less efficiently, leak free radicals, and send distress signals that accelerate aging. The result is a gradual decline in both energy and muscle integrity. Now, when compounds from natural foods like eggs and lentils enter this picture, they do something extraordinary. They help restore the rhythm of energy metabolism. Nutrients like choline, leucine, and plant polyphenols enhance mitochondrial biogenesis, the process of creating new mitochondria. This is not a surface-level effect. It is a deep cellular renovation. Imagine your body replacing old, tired engines with new, high-efficiency models that can power you through daily life with strength and clarity. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your muscle cells as cities connected by power plants. Over time, some of those plants go offline. You can keep adding more fuel, but it will not light the city until the plants are repaired or rebuilt. What these foods do is restart those power plants, restoring the steady current of energy that once defined youth. What recent research reveals is that improved mitochondrial performance does not only strengthen muscles, it strengthens every system that depends on energy. Your heart beats more efficiently, your brain clears waste more effectively, your liver processes nutrients with greater precision. The muscle becomes a metabolic command center, telling the rest of the body to regenerate instead of decline. This is why scientists now describe muscle as the organ of longevity. It is not just tissue, it is an active signaling hub that sends messages of renewal throughout the body. When you feed it with the right biological cues, not excessive protein powders, but real, intelligently composed foods, the entire system responds with vitality. The lesson here is that aging gracefully is not about fighting the clock. It is about restoring communication within the body's own systems, reigniting the conversation between food, hormones, and cells that once kept everything in balance. As we move deeper into the science of how muscle communicates with the rest of the body, One connection stands out above all others: the relationship between muscle tissue and inflammation. For years, the conversation about aging focused on muscle size, but what truly determines longevity is the level of silent inflammation running beneath the surface. And this is where the foods we have been discussing show another layer of brilliance. Here is what is really happening inside your body. When chronic low-grade inflammation takes hold, a condition scientists call inflammaging, it disrupts the delicate signaling network that controls muscle repair. Cells called macrophages, meant to heal damaged tissue, begin releasing cytokines that actually block protein synthesis and increase tissue breakdown. It is as if the body's repair crew accidentally turns into a demolition team. Eggs and lentils, despite their simplicity, contain compounds that help reverse this internal confusion. The phospholipids and choline in eggs strengthen cell membranes, making them more resilient to inflammatory damage. Meanwhile, the polyphenols and fiber in lentils alter the gut microbiome in a way that lowers systemic inflammation at its root. Together, these effects calm the immune response, allowing growth signals like mTOR and IGF-1 to resume their proper rhythm. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a construction site where constant noise and chaos prevent workers from hearing the instructions. Once the noise fades, the team can finally coordinate and rebuild efficiently. That quieting of background noise is what happens inside your tissues when inflammation subsides. The body can once again focus on repair rather than defense. What recent research reveals is that as inflammation decreases, the efficiency of nutrient utilization improves. Amino acids are absorbed more readily, mitochondria produce cleaner energy, and insulin sensitivity rises. These processes work in unison, not as isolated reactions, but as a network devoted to maintaining balance. The implications extend beyond muscle. Lower inflammation means better cardiovascular health, sharper cognition, and improved immune resilience. The same internal calm that allows a muscle to rebuild also protects the arteries, the brain, and even the skin from premature aging. So when people think of strength in later years, they often picture physical endurance, lifting, walking, or carrying. But true strength runs deeper. It is the ability of every cell to respond to life's challenges without overreacting. That kind of quiet power is built not from force, but from harmony, the harmony that foods like eggs and lentils help restore. If you are finding value in understanding how nature's simplest foods orchestrate such profound biological repair, consider subscribing. Each week we explore the elegant intelligence of your body and how to let it thrive naturally. There is one more layer to this story, one that connects everything we have explored so far. It is the relationship between muscle, the brain, and longevity. Most people think of muscle as simply mechanical, responsible for movement or posture. But new research shows that muscle is also a communication organ, sending biochemical messages that influence how your brain ages, how your immune system behaves, and how your metabolism stays balanced. Here is what is really happening inside your body. Every time your muscles contract, even subtly, they release signaling molecules called myokines. These molecules travel through your bloodstream and speak directly to other organs, especially the brain. They tell neurons to grow new connections, help glial cells clear waste, and even improve the sensitivity of your hypothalamus, which regulates hormones that control metabolism and appetite. As people age, when muscle mass and mitochondrial function decline, that communication weakens. The brain receives fewer of these rejuvenating signals, leading to slower cognition, fatigue, and mood changes that many attribute simply to getting older. But the evidence shows something far more encouraging. This decline is not inevitable. When the body begins to rebuild its muscle machinery through nutrient synergy and better metabolic signaling, those same myokines reawaken, reestablishing the conversation between body and mind. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your muscles as radio towers. When they are strong, the signal they send is clear and far-reaching. But as the towers weaken, static fills the airwaves and the brain loses the clarity of that message. The foods we have discussed, simple, accessible, and complete, strengthen those towers again. They allow the broadcast of vitality to resume across every system of the body. What recent research reveals is that higher levels of specific myokines, like irisin and BDNF, are directly correlated with lower rates of neurodegenerative decline and metabolic disorders. In other words, maintaining muscle health does not just help you move better, it keeps your brain sharper and your cells younger. This is why scientists now speak of muscle-centered longevity, where physical and mental resilience share the same biological foundation. So when we talk about a single $1 food that builds muscle faster than protein powders, we are not just talking about strength. We are talking about extending the body's conversation with life itself. The connection between food, muscle, and mind is not a supplement-driven shortcut. It is the original design of human physiology, refined over millions of years, reminding us that nature always built the blueprint for endurance, clarity, and renewal. When you step back and look at the full picture, a single theme runs through everything we have explored. The body is not failing with age. It is waiting for the right signals to awaken again. The foods that rebuild muscle after 70 do not work through force or excess. They work through precision. They remind your biology how to listen, how to respond, and how to repair in the way it once did naturally. The humble egg and the modest lentil together illustrate this truth more clearly than any supplement ever could. The egg delivers the perfect symphony of amino acids, lipids, and signaling molecules that awaken the muscle's internal machinery. The lentil brings fiber, peptides, and phytonutrients that restore insulin balance and reduce inflammation at the root. Each on its own is powerful, but together they tell your body that it is safe to rebuild. Here is what is really happening inside your body when that message is received. The muscle tissue begins communicating again with your brain, your liver, and your mitochondria. Hormones like insulin and cortisol find their balance. Energy stops leaking through the cracks of inflammation. The entire system shifts from survival to renewal. That shift from resistance to responsiveness is the biological definition of rejuvenation. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a city that once pulsed with life. Its power lines buzzing, its people active, its lights bright. Over the years, systems falter and the rhythm slows. But when power is restored to the grid, the city does not just survive, it glows again. That is precisely what happens when your body begins to rebuild its metabolic and muscular strength from the inside out. What recent research reveals is that this internal repair system can be reignited at any age. Even in the 70s, 80s, or beyond, the muscle remains responsive, waiting only for the right biochemical cues. And those cues come not from expensive powders or laboratory formulas, but from nature's simplest foods. The message is simple, yet profound. Muscle is not lost because of time, but because of communication. When that communication is restored, strength, energy, and vitality return, not as miracles, but as the natural rhythm of a body finally heard. If this exploration added value, like the video and subscribe to join others who are discovering how to live longer, stronger, and more vibrantly, not by fighting age, but by working with the remarkable intelligence of the human body itself.